My friend, to tell you the truth, it's not an easy journey to convince your finance people or the people who have been running the show for like 20, 30 years back that we have to go into the sustainable approach. It's not going to be an easy journey.
Meet Dr. Talal Muhammad, a strategy and supply chain powerhouse revolutionizing the healthcare industry in UAE. Beyond his executive roles, Dr. Muhammad is a professor at leading universities where he researches the impact of AI, social media, and sustainability on modern businesses. Award-winning, widely published, and deeply committed to nurturing future leaders, Dr. Muhammad is the perfect example of forward-thinking leadership in action.
If we continue on using this harsh approach of utilizing everything, resources will get depleted. And then we will reach 2050 or 2060, whereby you have a generation, they don't have any resources, they will be starving. You will see that they have stopped their dependence on the oil and gas.
Yeah.
They said, this is not for us. This is for the next generation.
Welcome, Talal.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. We're going to talk today about one of the most complex environments, I think, that we can talk about, a hospital. And I've always been wondering, procurement in a hospital must be an extremely complex job. Okay. What are sort of the most prominent challenges that you face in getting everything together in such an environment?
Excellent. Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. As you said, procurement is a very complex job, not only in the hospital, everywhere.
Yeah.
And there is a big misconception about procurement. People till now, they are still thinking that procurement is about reducing the cost. However, nowadays, we are no longer talking about reducing the cost. We are talking about optimization of the cost. How are you going to get the best of any item while trying as much as possible to match your budget? Talking about the healthcare settings, you will find a lot of difficulties, especially for procurement guys, to be able to match with the request of their finance department, first of all, because they are the one putting the budget. They are, unfortunately, the one dictating the budget. Also, if you are thinking about a sustainable approach in procurement, you will find a lot of difficulties with the regulatories if the items or if this approach is approved by the, let's say, DHA, if you're talking about the healthcare, JCI. Also, you will find a lot of difficulties dealing with suppliers that they are having the same values and the objective that you have. We in the procurement, we cannot deal with any supplier. We have to qualify our suppliers based on list of criteria. So if we take them all together, you will find that in the procurement, we are facing a lot of challenges. But as long as we are following the value-based procurement approach, which means putting the quality first on top of the cost, I believe we are doing well.
Yeah. And how does that, so from a healthcare perspective, obviously you're trying to balance different things, in particular also making sure that patient well-being and managing patient risk in particular is top of mind all the time. So how does that sort of like come through in a procurement approach in general?
While talking about a healthcare setup, procurement in the healthcare setup will always put the patient in the center of their activity. Everything what we are doing is rolling around the patient, the well-being of the patient. While selecting my medication, while selecting my IV cannula, while selecting my medical equipment, my purpose is to deliver the highest level of care to my patient so they will come again. In the healthcare, my friend, our stakeholders, our client is the patient. Our revenue generator is the patient. If they are not happy, if they are not satisfied, we cannot sustain in the business. We cannot continue in the business. So all our procurement decisions, activities, insights are always rolling around the patient and the well-being of the patient. So we are trying as much as possible to get the best things for our patient, to prioritize what will be, for example, the result on our patient. Maybe if one item will get the healing faster for my patient, although it's higher on cost, I have no problem. I will compromise on the cost because by the end of the day, I'm pleasing my patient, who is my number one and the only source of revenue.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess that in today's world, obviously, sustainability is becoming a force to reckon with. You have to take that into account in your supply chain environment.
Definitely.
How is that sort of like helping you in the drive to putting the patient first in everything you do?
Actually, we are living in Dubai, and one of Dubai's objective in 2035 is to be 33 is to become the number one sustainable city in the world. So we in the healthcare, we should hold this responsibility in helping the vision of this city to become more sustainable. How can we do it? By trying as much as possible to integrate and to introduce the sustainable approach in our procurement. But my friend, to tell you the truth, it's not an easy journey. To convince your finance people or the people who have been running the show for like 20, 30 years back that we have to go into the sustainable approach, it's not going to be an easy journey.
Yeah.
We will be faced, for example, for budget constraints. This is something that would happen. We will be faced by resistance to change because, as you know, people, they are getting acquainted into some setup. They don't want to go into a different approach. Another obstacle would be availability of suppliers and stakeholders who are speaking the same language.
Yeah.
Till now, if we are talking about the concept of sustainability, believe me, last time in my university course, I was asking the question, how familiar you are with the sustainable approach? 50%, my friend, of the answer was like, what does it mean, sustainability? Why shall we be sustainable? Also, we did an exercise. We asked our students, telling them, if you want to invest in a new setup, do you prefer purchasing, for example, sustainable material, which will cost you 30%, or non-sustainable, which is less in cost? Majority went into less sustainable because they don't know, they are not well aware about the importance of sustainability. So back to your question, talking about the healthcare, sustainable approach and the vision of Dubai is helping us too much. But to tell you the truth, we are still not in the blue moon. We are still facing a lot of constraints, a lot of restrictions. But by trying to implement this, by increasing the awareness of people of the importance of sustainable, about the future of our next third and fourth generation, I believe, especially as a healthcare provider, we should go faster in adopting such an approach. Again, the journey is not easy,
No.
but we are doing as much as possible. And even while taking decision-making and high-level decision-making, we are trying to put sustainability as a criteria of evaluation in our procurement decision.
Yeah.
And this is something that we recently introduced in our hospital, like in the scorecard of procurement. You have, for example, the payment terms, you have, for example, the price, you have the, let's say, supplier reliability. Now we have also sustainability.
Yeah.
And we are putting a percentage, let's say, a weight for sustainable approach that I believe will help us later on to adopt such an approach.
And I guess that also sustainability in any case, but in healthcare in particular, in this example, is at different levels, obviously, because you have the hospital building. There is a number of things that you can do to change its energy profile, for example, when it's an existing environment. But at the same time, you have that natural tension, obviously, when you make choices where you focus on between patient risk and at the same time, getting your goal.
100%. Especially while working in a healthcare setup, patient risk is being governed by the infection control, is being covered by the DHA, by JCI, by the nursing accreditation. So it's not easy to adopt a sustainable approach if it's not approved by those, let's say, government bodies.
Yeah.
If it's not an FDA approved approach, if it's not a JCI approved approach. So I fully agree with you that going into a sustainable approach should go through multiple layers of approval. as long as we are not putting the patient at risk. Because, for example, our infection control department, let's talk about water purification or any activity that would reduce the carbon footprint. For them, reducing carbon footprint is very good. But will this affect, for example, the functionality of the ventilator, the functionality of this medical equipment? If this is the case, then I'm putting my patient at risk. Then I cannot go into a sustainable approach while sacrificing on the well-being of my patient. So I fully agree with your approach. Yes, it has to be studied very well. We want to go into a sustainable approach, but we are a patient-centered organization whereby the best and the well-being of the patient is on top of our priority. It's the center of our excellence, and we are all, as executives, as the caregivers, providers, we are all rolling around this patient. So whatever is best for the patient will be done. Now, if sustainability and patient well-being will come across, that's perfect. That's music to our ears. But if anyone would be on the expense of the other, patient will win, definitely.
And how do certain changes in the standards, you mentioned JCI, for example, drive that whole process also forward? Because JCI is obviously putting more emphasis on sustainability now as well. What do they particularly target in their standard new edition that came out?
In December 2024, there was a new chapter introduced by the JCI talking about sustainability. And they even obliged every medical institution or hospital to have a chief sustainability officer on board, reporting to the government bodies of the city or for example, the country, like here in Dubai, the DHA, telling them what is the approach that they are going to follow in the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years to match the sustainability vision of the JCI. What they will focus on, the quality of material that you are using, the product. For example, if you can purchase a dressing that is biodegradable and you are not doing this, this will reduce your scoring evaluation in this chapter. If you can reduce your carbon footprint, the quality of your water, the quality of your chemicals, the way, for example, you are exposing the patient to, let's say, CO2 or anything. If you are not doing this, you will be evaluated as not met criteria. And in the JCI, if you have more than 10% not met criteria, you will fail the evaluation. And as you know, one of the main obligation of any hospital working in the UAE is to be JCI accredited. So you cannot risk, because if you don't have that JCI, you are not allowed to receive patient. So going back to this new chapter, a lot of activities are now being tracked, from the facility management, from the engineering, from the procurement, from the nursing, from the quality of air purification. Everything is being under the magnifier, everything is being scored, and the better you are scoring, the better you are getting a higher evaluation in the report. And also, to be honest, not only that JCI is doing this, DHA is pushing towards a sustainable environment, and they are giving incentives to any hospital who is doing, let's say, a sustainability approach. With my previous employer, we used to do a lot of activities in the sustainability, and we got a lot of incentives from DHA. Like, for example, if your process for any upgrade, for any activity that you want to add, for any license will take, for example, normally 15 days, hospitals and organizations who are following the, let's say, the sustainable approach, they will have faster process, they will get incentive, maybe they will get discounts on how much they have to pay, just for them to support the vision of the city and the country itself.
And hospitals, obviously, by virtue of also, you mentioned infection control, super important component in the entire ecosystem in the hospital. Make use of a lot of disposables in order to again manage the hospital-acquired infections and whatnot. How do you sort of set criteria around those disposables and the purchase thereof? Is that
Usually, as per the standards, we prefer always going into the disposable approach and not the reusable approach.
Yeah.
And in case we are going into using the reusable item, which is more sustainable, we need a justification and a certification from the manufacturer that this item can be re-sterilized and how many times it can be re-sterilized. If we don't have this certification, we are not going to use the item, although we might know that it can be reused or reprocessed.
Yeah.
For the disposable item, as you said, nosocomial infection, we call it nosocomial infection, is a main criteria that we are following in our hospital. It's a main KPI that we are following. How much is the percentage of nosocomial infection that we are getting from patients who have been treated in our hospital? And what is the reason? Usually, when we understand the numbers, we'll be able to understand the root cause and why this is happening. And then, as a procurement, we are always giving the green light to the care providers and to the infection control to select an item over the other item, despite or regardless of the cost, regardless of from where are we going to get the item. Even if the item is not available and we have to ship it from outside, we have no problem in order not to compromise on any infection control standard. Many times we face this opportunity, like our process of selecting any item, we do something called product evaluation. Sometimes, believe me, my friend, we are giving the infection control 3 and 5 options on the table. All of them are getting rejected. We are not even blinking with them. Because for us, they know better what is the best for the patient. And as long as this product is not fitting their criteria, despite the cost optimization that we are going to do, despite the facility that we are going to get from the supplier, we void the decision and we go as per their standard and their guideline, because they are at the forefront. They know better than us. One nosocomial infection for me will cost me the reputation of my hospital.
Yeah, it is a cost of the reputation. It's a financial cost also.
100%.
It is,
and the most important thing, the patient was gonna acquire any, God forbid, pneumonia or anything from your hospital. Do you think he will come back?
No.
Do you think he's gonna advocate for you, or he will be speaking badly about his experience? And as you know, one bad reputation will reach out to 89%. One good reputation will reach only to 1.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when we look back in time a little bit, during the pandemic, I guess one of the biggest things that got exposed is obviously supply chain vulnerabilities. What is sort of for you the biggest lesson that you or the industry learned in the context of supply chain?
To tell you the truth, during COVID, all of us, all supply chain executive, we got schooled. It's like we went back to school and we learned the lessons that if you don't have a solid supply chain, solid supplier, reliable supplier that they can deliver to you regardless of the condition that's happening, then your whole process is wrong. Also, we went into too many metrics related to our inventory management, like the demand forecasting, the automation of the forecast. All hospitals, and you can quote me on this, and the private sector and the government sector, they took a financial decision of increasing their stock level, increasing their safety stock, just for them to predict any shortcome out or coming from any pandemic. You know that during the pandemic, not a single hospital used to have more than 45 days or 50 days stock of PPEs, for example. Few of them that I know for a fact, they only had for 2 weeks. And that was correct, because back in days, no one was thinking that this is going to happen. That we are going to be obliged not to leave our floor without a mask. Correct? That people will start sending us messages, please stay at home instead of going out. So as a supply chain people, we went into the dilemma of having a huge demand, a very less supply. And if you want to find a supplier, we found that majority of the suppliers, they didn't have the solid approach or the solid supply chain or the agile supply chain for them to be able to sustain or to provide or to support the request of their hospitals. That's why one of the lessons, we re-evaluated all our suppliers and we went from the term of supplier to stakeholder. Later on, we're no longer dealing with supplier. I'm dealing with a stakeholder, someone who is sharing the same mission and vision, which is putting the patient at the center of our activities.
Yeah.
You might be the best supplier in the world, the highly ranked, but if you are not able to provide me with availability of items, with surplus of items whenever I need continuous supply, then I believe you are not the right person to be selected. From a financial perspective, as I told you, lessons learned was never compromise on your safety stock. Also, we tried as much as we can to reduce the distance between the suppliers and the raw material that we are getting. If we have, for example, one supplier in Oman and the other one in China, it's better to focus with the one who is nearby to you, because of any pandemic, anything that would happen in the supply chain, any activity, any war, God forbid, our supply should not be interrupted.
Yeah, you shorten the routes, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are trying as much as possible. Sometimes it's not easy because, of the monopoly of some big countries that they are doing everything. But if you can shorten the distance, as you said, or shorten the route, that would be perfect.
Yeah. And did the pandemic, or rather how we got out of it, put more emphasis on automating the whole process as well, including new technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning, for example, in how you manage and forecast your stock requirements?
Definitely. One of the major impact of the pandemic was giving more hype to the inventory optimization and the inventory replenishment method.
Yeah.
Now everyone is talking about the automatic replenishment or the automation of the replenishment process, which means nowadays we can embed the data that we have to our system, and the system will do the math for us.
Yeah.
Nowadays, with the artificial intelligence, let's talk, for example, about Google. Google, they are doing a lot of innovation in the inventory management. They have a tool called demand forecasting that will tell you, for example, your supplier is in Germany and you want to place your order after 6 months. This artificial intelligence will tell you if after 6 months the manufacturer in Germany will be able to deliver, yes or no, taking into consideration capacity, geopolitical situation. Maybe they know for a fact that there is election in Germany after 6 months, which might interrupt the process for 2 to 3 days. Everything is being calculated. And what do we want more as a supply chain leader? If you give me data, 2025, we are in the era of data.
Yeah.
We are no longer in the era of oil and gas. The more you are going to optimize your data, read the data, analyze the data, you will be able to take the right decision.
Yeah.
So yes, back to your question, there is a big emphasis now on inventory optimization tools, using automatic replenishment, using RPA, robotic process automation, in order to make sure that we are trying as much as possible to reduce the human factor and to introduce the machine factor to try as much as possible to predict or to overcome any shortcoming. But yeah.
No, and so are those tools also usable in defining your strategy going forward in the context of sustainability and some of the topics we already talked about?
Yes.
The choice of products, the type of products that are required. How do you see that happening in the future?
Definitely. Nowadays, suppliers and providers are becoming more keen about the concept of sustainability. So they are trying to innovate in sustainability because they know for a fact that procurement guys in the next 5 years will start using sustainable approach. They will start using more the sustainable approach as a criteria of evaluation.
Yeah.
So that what they will do, they are trying to innovate as much as possible. For us, the moment we have reliable suppliers who can use sustainable or produce sustainable item, we can do sort of integration between our system and their system when it comes to replenishment.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to place an order to you to deliver after 2 months. Your system will be mimicking with my system and will be immediately replenishing the moment I reach, for example, 50%, 40%, depending on three factors. First of all, my budget, my availability, and my stock space management.
Yeah.
And sometimes I want to have 3 months stock, but I don't have the space. So if we are talking about a sustainable approach, you can keep the item in your let's say in your warehouse, and you deliver to me according to multiple shipment or schedule of delivery. So we are trying as much as we can to reduce the flow of transportation, let's say, the flow of cartoons that we are releasing every day. Yeah, that's the approach.
Yeah, and I think also what it does internally, probably going forward, is creating links internally that allow you to analyze better how the use of certain products or functions within a hospital actually can demonstrate the value. So, for example, if you look at infection control, everybody is obviously on a daily basis concerned about hospital-acquired infections,
Correct.
avoiding it, making sure that all the standards are being met. But it is not always something in the short term that you can say, okay, product A versus product B. A is a little bit more expensive, but the value sits in the fact that you have a long-term benefit in avoiding cost. Technology like AI, machine learning, allows you probably to create better
100%.
insight.
Nowadays, we are following the approach of TCO, total cost of ownership.
Yeah.
If sometimes I'm purchasing an item A, which is 5,000 dirham, and item B is 2,000 dirham. But if I'm purchasing the 5,000 item, if I'm talking about the total cost of ownership, this one is more profitable to me because it might reduce the ALOS, the average length of stay of the patient in my hospital.
Yes.
As a hospital, I want a high turnover. I want the bed to be occupied by multiple persons. So instead of giving you an item that a dressing, for example, or an IV or whatever that will keep you 5 days, if I can get the same, who is more expensive but will keep you 3 days, then I'm increasing my profitability on the long run.
Yes.
Let's say the added value of those AI tools that will give us access to more data, to more metrics, to face our stakeholders and our finance guys that we shouldn't look into the number only. We should take multiple factors into consideration. First of all, maybe the item who is more expensive will increase the healing process of the patient. So the patient will be in pain less. So his satisfaction will increase. If patient satisfaction increases, then this patient will be working as an ambassador for the hospital.
Yeah.
So he'll be speaking highly. So he's increasing our reach, our reputation.
Yeah.
So instead of investing in marketing, I have the best marketing, which is the words of mouth.
Yeah.
Talking about the TCO, nowadays with the advanced technology of AI and data metrics, it's helping us too much to sit around the table, show the people different approach that they didn't used to go or they didn't used to follow, let's say 5, 10, 20 years back.
What do you see happening inside the hospital, Al-Zahra, where you're working, in terms of educating the staff internally about all those developments and movements? I mean, it's going at a breakneck speed. It's fast at the moment, so I'm pretty sure that it is also very important from your perspective to make sure that all the various stakeholders internally understand what to expect and how to change.
Exactly. The number one thing that we should focus on is to increase the awareness about this approach. Because as I told you, still people are far behind in the concept of sustainability and the impact of AI tools on demand, let's say, forecasting. So our job as executives is to increase the level of awareness, is to educate our stakeholder, is to show them real figures, real case studies that will support our approach in using, for example, sustainable material, what would be the direct and the indirect cost that would be embedded while using a sustainable approach.
Yeah.
It's not easy. We have a long journey to be followed, but with the support of every stakeholder, I believe the journey will be easier. But to tell you the truth, we are still not in Az-Zahra, in all hospitals, we are still far behind because, as you said, it's skyrocketing, it's going very fast. The approach and the country itself is going fastly towards sustainable approach.
Yeah.
So we have to fasten our process as well. We are doing as much as possible, let's say, seminars and webinars with the providers themselves. We are bringing them on board. Suppliers who are delivering, let's say, sustainable approach or sustainable materials, they are coming, they are showcasing what is the impact of using their approach, what would be the direct and indirect benefits. And I believe with more awareness, with more hype, with more marketing, we are going through.
Is the general sort of attitude in a hospital environment, and I'm talking very general here,
Yes,
more conservative in approach or more progressive? How would you characterize it?
unfortunately, with the high level of competition we have in the UAE, especially in the healthcare sector,
Yeah.
people are becoming very keen about their profit and their margins,
Yeah.
especially with the problem that we have with the DRG system, with the reimbursement rate, with the insurance company who are making the life miserable for some hospitals. So yes, the approach is conservative as long as you're talking about, for example, a cost increase in sense that, for example, direct cost. But if we are going to consider the indirect cost, maybe our approach is better. Also, the conservative approach comes from the government authorities. As I told you, if this approach is not following or tallying with the JCI chapter, infection control, the HA rules, FDA, then it's not easy. Even if it's sustainable,
Yeah.
but it doesn't fit in our criteria. Usually hospitals are conservative.
Yeah.
But with the new approach, with the new era that we are living, I believe more education, more awareness, more open talks, open communication will help us to reach through.
Now you're teaching also new and upcoming leaders.
Yes.
What is sort of like the vibe that you get from all those young people in your classroom?
To tell you the truth, teaching is the most, let's say, noble activity someone can do. Not for your personal benefit. It's just because that you are educating people and leaving a legacy in the mindset or in the future of people who will lead you later on. Now, for example, let me give an example of the American University in Dubai, whereby majority of my MBA students are. The moment I'm spending those 2-3 hours a week with them, believe me, the positivity, the insights, the vibes, the engagement that they have, and the project that they have in mind and they want to implement in UAE, in the region itself, it gives you around a high level of applause, and you will be happy because those people started understanding the importance of sustainability, the importance of corporate social responsibility. The amount of greediness is becoming less. They are more concerned about the future, the upcoming future, the next generation, not only their generation. So while teaching, while getting along with such mindset, with such people, you will feel happy that the future is very promising, especially that those will be leading us in the next 5 or 10 and 15 years. So if they are getting educated properly, and that's the main mission for any professor, to make sure that he is developing the skills of those people to become better than him or her and to lead him or her in the future.
So it's a very hopeful message, basically.
Yes. This is how we should do it. If we don't have passion, if we are not, let's say, 100% sure that those people will become better than us, we shouldn't do any teaching activity.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we are just coming, throwing some slides, doing the homework, and leaving. And that's not the passion of teaching.
No.
Teaching means leaving a legacy in the mindset of every single student that you are coming across with.
Yeah. So what does it mean for you to have a green mind?
Green mind means thinking about the environment, thinking about others, putting your greediness aside and think about the future of your kids and the kids of your kids and the next generation. If you're thinking about green mind, in everything you can be green-minded. If you don't print too much, you are green-minded. If you are reducing the use of plastic bottles or the trying as much as you can to increase the recycling activity, if you are trying to walk and not to use your car, if you are using the bicycle instead of using and trying to reduce the carbon footprint, you are a green mind. I believe for us to sustain and for the next generation to sustain, we can't but be a green-minded people. If you are not a green-minded people, I guess you will live, but your next generation will not live. We are living in the era of non-renewable resources. Unfortunately, most of the resources are non-renewable.
Yeah.
So if we continue on using this harsh approach of utilizing everything, those resources will get depleted. And then we will reach 2050 or 2060, whereby you have a generation, they don't have any resources, they will be starving. And if you follow the approach of UAE and GCC countries, you will see that they have stopped their dependence on the oil and gas.
Yeah.
They said, this is not for us. This is for the next generation. And they start diversifying their portfolio, moving outside the oil and gas, moving into the tourism, moving into the real estating. And that's a sustainable approach also, because you are leaving a space for the next generation to use the other resources and to continue producing.
So it's exciting times for people like you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. For us, that's the purpose.
Yeah.
If we try as much as we can to educate people on being green-minded, that's the ultimate thing. But to tell you the truth, in the business, we are like, between brackets, a jungle. Everyone would like to get everything. I gave you the example of my students, my bachelor student, whereby they know for a fact that one product will be more profitable than they don't care about sustainability.
Yeah.
They don't care about going into the green mindset. So responsibility on us as supply chain leaders, as university professors, is to show them the impact of being a green-minded and what would be the drawback if you are not using this green mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Talal, thank you very much for the conversation today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure being your host, and I wish you all the success in your podcast.